Okay, I'm going to talk about problem solving. So, if we identify that there's a problem, then it follows that there is a cause of that problem, right? It checks out basic logic. So, to provide an example that I'm going to kind of use as an analogy to bigger problems, I'm going to provide an example of a simple problem. So, say you have a leak in your roof, okay? The drywall has been ruined, and because of that, you got to fix the leak, right? Are you going to fix the drywall before you fix the shingles? Of course not. That makes no sense because if you fix the drywall without fixing the shingles, then the drywall is going to get ruined the next time it rains. And because you can't stop it from raining, you best fix the shingles first, right? And then maybe you got to fix the insulation and then you fix the drywall, right? It would obviously be illogical to fix the drywall first or to fix the insulation first. So let's that's a simple problem though. We can all kind of backtrack and identify the catalyst of the problem, which is again, there's probably a hole in the shingles, right? So, what are some big problems today? We could say in the United States, for example, if you ask the average voter or the average citizen, what would they say are the biggest problems? Well, some might tell you that the economy, right? Perhaps, and they might point out issues related to the economy. So, immigration, we're letting a bunch of illegal immigrants in, and they're gonna, our government's gonna pay for they're gonna pay these illegal immigrants a bunch of our tax dollars, and we can't afford to do that. Again, that's an economic problem. We could point out something else. Someone else might say is inflation. Again, that's an economic problem. The inflation is driving up prices and people can't afford houses, they can't afford to pay their rent, they can't afford to buy groceries, etc. Another problem someone might point out is climate change. That's another big problem that some people are concerned about. Okay, if we have droughts in California, for example, or I don't know, droughts anywhere, if we have extreme weather events, recently you had a lot of power grid shutdowns in Texas. That causes economic problems, right? So this climate change issue is really kind of comes back to the economy, right? And one more problem that people might point out is division in general. So just division, whether it's cultural division, political division, we could say that the division is hindering our ability to organize and to solve the problems, right? So that's a valid argument too. So basically, I've given kind of some common examples of what most voters or citizens would identify as the biggest problems. So we have a lot of things relating to the economy. Again, immigration. We have division, which again kind of relates back to the economy because if we're divided, we can't solve the problems that our economy is leading to. We climate change, again, perhaps an economic problem. And I pointed out one more, immigration and what was the last one? Yeah, it doesn't matter. So the point is, we have a list of problems. And in theory, if we do find the cause of these problems, we will solve them, right? So why can't we solve them? Why are the problems seemingly getting worse? Well, it's because we're not addressing the catalyst. We are fixing the insulation. We're fixing the drywall, and yet the roof's still leaking. In another example, you could say is if you're depressed and we treat depression with a medication, well, maybe you fix that person. Maybe you help that person in the short or long term. But if the rates of depression are still rising, then well, you didn't address the catalyst. So you can treat an individual. You can treat the symptom. You can treat the leak by fixing the drywall. You can treat the economy by printing, or rather by making stimulus bills, right? You can treat the immigration problem by stopping immigration. You can treat the climate change by doing all this carbon credit nonsense, right? But at the end of the day, you're not solving the problem because the problems are still getting worse, right? We still have rising wealth inequality. We still have more people immigrating here. We still have rising temperatures. And we kind of, if you ask me, we still have rising division, right? We still have rising cultural and political division. So we're not solving the catalyst. So in order to find the catalyst, let's make an assumption. And this is kind of a big assumption, but let's make an assumption. Let's assume that all of the problems have one catalyst. Okay, all of those problems I listed, division, all the economic problems, the climate change, let's assume that they all have a common catalyst. And let's try to find it, because if we find it, we're in good shape, right? Because that will help us solve it, right? So what is the thing in common with the economy? Well, again, who writes the economic bills? Who controls the markets that that determine our wages and that determine the distribution of resources and the distribution of our value production? People do, right? So the voters determine the economic policy through their elected representatives. The voters determine their place in the workplace through labor unions, right? Through labor movements in general. The workers, the voters, the citizens determine the amount of division, right, in the world, right, in our society. So if we are constantly pointing the finger at somebody, well, that's us determining that, right? We are the cause. Who determines the climate change? Well, if you look at the science, a lot of the science largely agrees that we are the cause of the rising temperatures, right? Because of the carbon we're putting into there, the CO2, right? And if you disagree with that, whatever, just throw it aside. Not a big deal. But the bottom line is that the commonality, the common denominator that is consistent throughout all of our problems is people, right? That's not very insightful, right? Of course it's people. Of course we are the ones in control of all these things. Of course the problem starts with us. But let's dive deeper, because there's more here to uncover. So what about the people? Why are the people failing to create an economy that is sustainable? Why are the people becoming divided? Why are the people putting so much CO2 in the air that is causing temperatures to rise? Why are the people accepting the immigration, right? Why can't we deal with the immigration? Well, it follows that if the people are failing to create the socioeconomic structures that are sustainable for themselves, then their health is decaying, right? We're failing to provide for ourselves sustainably, so, well, our health is a problem here, right? So maybe chronic disease is the problem. That's another big problem that some voters or citizens might point out. Chronic disease, right? We have rising rates of depression, anxiety, obesity, right? Addiction. Well, what causes that? This is where I think we need to look to some old wisdom, okay? We all have heard of the phrase, you are what you eat. Hippocrates said something along the lines of, let food be thy medicine, and let medicine be thy food, right? So, again, if I go back to that example I said earlier, we treat depression with SSRIs, right, or anxiety, but it doesn't address the fact that more people are becoming depressed and anxious. We try to treat obesity with Ozempic, right? But it doesn't address the fact that more people are becoming obese. We never asked why people are becoming obese. We just treated the obesity. We never asked why people were becoming depressed. We just treated it. We never asked why people were becoming divided. We just we haven't really done much at all to fix the division, and that's what I'm trying to do here today. But let's dig into this. Why are we getting sick? What is the cause of this chronic disease? Well, increasingly, our science is showing that the soil that we grow food out of is dying. And what I mean by it's dying is that our agricultural methods are killing the microbiome in the soil. And the effect that this has on our health is astronomical. It's astronomical. And I'm basically here to convince you that it's everything. I'm here to convince you that the soil is the underlying catalyst of all of our problems. So let's try to do that. Again, let's go back to this microbiome. When we use pesticides and herbicides and we overtill our crop fields and we do all of this monocropping, what does that do to the microbiome in the soil? Well, it kills it, right? We know this. We've all heard of, or most of us have heard of glyphosate. And if you haven't heard of glyphosate, I recommend you look into this after you listen to this video. But glyphosate is an herbicide or pesticide that kills bugs, right? in order to have better crop yields. But here's the thing, this microbiome in the soil, it plays a crucial role in the food web of of nature in general. So what happens is when we kill this microbiome, our crops won't grow, right? So what do? Well, we treat the problem. So we put we fertilize the soil, right? Every year we'll have these giant farms fertilizing the soil. Why? Well, because they're killing the microbes that would otherwise create the environment for those crops to thrive. We kill the weeds, we kill all the worms, we kill the earthworms, and we kill all the mycorrhizae, we kill all of these bugs and these little microbes that would otherwise create the environment for the crops to thrive. But because we prioritize profits, we prioritize yields, crop yields, over the health of the plants and the health of the soil, we kill them. We spray pesticides and herbicides on them. We overtill the fields, and we have this monocropping, right? And the monocropping doesn't just go for big agricultural fields, right? It applies to your everyday green lawn. You have these uniform grass lawns that don't have any biodiversity in them. It's all just one Kentucky bluegrass, right? This is terrible for the soil. Okay, again, it destroys the biodiversity, and when you destroy the biodiversity in the soil, the nutrients that, again, we have to replace those nutrients with the fertilizers, right? And the crops may look right. We may grow peppers and spinach and apples, and they may look like apples and peppers and spinach, but they are missing a crucial biodiversity of nutrients that organic food has. Okay, so when the food itself is missing the micronutrients and we eat that food, we are missing the micronutrients. So we are not eating food, we're not eating the food we evolved with. And the result of that is we're going insane. How does that insanity play out? Well, into our socioeconomic structures. Okay, so we are effectively, because our body is subconsciously detecting a micronutrient deficiency, we are basically going into this fight or flight mode, this fear-driven fight or flight mode. And what that fight or flight mode basically leads to is greed, right? It makes sense. If a species is stressed because of scarcity, micronutrient scarcity, they're going to get greedy. And that greed infiltrates every aspect of our culture, into the economy in particular, into, again, every aspect of our culture. And that greed, what does that greed do? Well, it encourages you to collect excess resources. So now, instead of collecting micronutrients, we're collecting money. And we think the money is going to insulate ourselves from the scarcity, from the fear of that scarcity, from those fight or flight instincts. But in reality, all that collection of money does is it creates more poverty elsewhere. So when you have billionaires alongside people living on the street, the billionaires are collecting the resources that would otherwise feed the people living on the street, that would otherwise feed those people micronutrients. If the people could afford organic vegetables, they could afford perhaps organic grass-fed beef, they would be healthier and they would not be stuck in this fight or flight mode. But instead, we are, again, deficient in micronutrients, so we get greedy. We justify more collection of excess resources. That collection of excess resources creates more scarcity elsewhere, and that creates more fear of poverty, more fear of that impoverished lifestyle. And it just justifies this vicious cycle. It's circular logic. It doesn't actually solve the problem. We're never addressing the catalyst. So the problem gets worse. The wealth inequality gets worse. The chronic disease epidemic gets worse. The anxiety, the obesity, the depression. It all gets worse until you address the catalyst. So we take these steps back. If we fix the soil, what happens? Well, our health improves because the food improves. And then we get a little less greedy because we don't in that fear mindset anymore. We're not in that scarcity mindset. We leave the fight or flight mode into an abundance mindset. We start electing better people because our scarcity mindset stops electing bad people, stops electing scared people who, again, create bad economic policy. And then there's just vicious cycles everywhere here. It doesn't even matter if you pick a communistic or a capitalistic solution to this problem. It doesn't matter if you want to write economic policy to fix the wealth inequality, or you want to demand free market solutions to the economic inequality. The bottom line is that so long as the soil is bad, both the economic policy and the free market movements are going to reflect the bad soil. They're going to reflect our bad health. It all begins with what we eat. That is the point here. So what's another, again, that's the economy problem. We've wiped that off the list. What's another problem people point out? Well, climate change, right? How is climate change related to the soil? Well, if you look at a lot of the common climate change narrative, people will tell you that the CO2 we're putting too much CO2 in the atmosphere. It's warming the temperatures. This is true. The CO2 warms the atmosphere and causes weather changes, right? And that can lead to economic problems above all. But beyond that, the CO2 actually, believe it or not, creates a higher potential for biodiversity. That's a good thing, okay? But the problem is we killed the soil. So all the microbes in the soil, under all of our green lawns, under all of the massive crop fields that grow all of our food, those microbes are gone, so they can't absorb the CO2 in the air. And the result of that is the climate change, right? The problem isn't the CO2 we're putting into the atmosphere. In fact, when we take CO2 out from underground, right, in those oil reservoirs, and we release it above the ground, it creates, again, a higher potential for biodiversity, and that is a good thing. But because our soil is unhealthy, because there's no biodiversity in our soil where we eat, where we grow all our food, there's no biodiversity in the food. And beyond that, we've created it's funny because you can eat non-organic vegetables and fruits, and they're better for you than processed food, but we've created an entire processed food market as well that basically strips out the few nutrients that were in the non-organic food, and we fortify them, right? We fortify the nutrients back in. But that fortification comes nowhere close to putting back the nutrients that actually come in organic food. And that's the problem here. The problem is that we are in this vicious cycle because we are eating the wrong food. Again, the common denominator with all of our problems is the soil. So if we address this problem, all the other problems solve themselves over time. We don't have to worry about convincing the billionaires to spread their wealth more evenly, because if the billionaires start eating healthier food, they will understand that it is beneficial to spread that wealth and to spread the production of healthy food. So what can you do? What are the solutions to this problem? Well, obviously you can start eating better food. And organic food's expensive, I'll give you that. But if you can afford it, what happens is when you buy that organic food, well, you contribute to those markets. Those markets grow. Those markets become more efficient. We become more efficient as a population at growing organic food. And by extension, those foods get cheaper because the supply increases. And then the people who couldn't afford it can now afford it because the price dropped again. So beyond that, though, you can plant a garden. If you have land, if you have a windowsill, plant food. Pick something that you like, and plant food and eat it. It will be healthier than anything you can buy in a grocery store, most likely. Another thing you can do is buy locally grown food, right? We have all of our food production that is located so far away from our population centers. We drive food, billions of calories, thousands of miles across the country and the world, when in reality we should just be eating locally grown food, and it would decrease all of that carbon usage. And what could you do with that carbon use? If we ate all locally grown food, we could offset that carbon, the CO2. We could all just go on vacations, more vacations, because we wouldn't be driving, wouldn't have thousands of 18-wheelers driving trucks thousands of miles every day. We could all, again, we could be going on vacations instead of going drive. We have, how many people drive for their 40 hours a week? Is it 40% of the country has a job driving? It's absolutely asinine. It's all because we don't produce food locally. We don't, and beyond that, we don't produce most goods and services locally. But we can do that if we're efficient about this. But what else can you do? Again, you can always plant a garden, you can always buy organic food, but what if you don't have any money? Because a lot of this stuff requires money. What if you're broke? You can't probably afford the organic food. Well, bottom line is the non-organic food, the fruits and vegetables, the legumes, the plant-based food, that the expensive grass-fed meat, it's all going to be healthier for you than the processed food. So stop buying the processed food, stop eating the fast food, and you'll start feeling better. You'll start leaving this scarcity mindset, and you'll start being able to think critically about the real causes of our problems, and you perhaps will stop getting so divided in these culture wars that are distracting us, right? And that's a point I didn't really address, is the division. The division is just an extension of this scarcity mindset. We're scared, so we have to blame someone for this, for our fear. And who do we blame? Well, we blame whoever the fucking television tells us to blame. We blame the other political party. We blame the cultural opposition, the other race, the other gender, the other religion. We blame the anti-vaxxers. We blame the pro-vaxxers. We blame the pro-choicers. We blame the pro-lifers. We blame anyone we can because of the soil, because we are killing the soil. Again, it all begins in the soil. So again, if you're broke, you can vote for the people who prioritize this soil narrative, okay? This soil narrative is not the carbon credit narrative. It's not the carbon emission narrative. The people who are pushing for regenerative agriculture, those are the people you need to be voting for, because that actually addresses the problem. The people who are going to go into office and fund and write economic policy that funds regenerative agriculture, those are the people you got to vote for. Another thing you can do is advocate for this soil narrative, okay? And the best part about this soil narrative is it doesn't blame anybody. It doesn't point the finger at a cultural opposition. There's no division in this narrative. Everyone knows that you should eat healthier. Everyone, there's conservatives and liberals alike would like to support their locally grown food producers more, okay? That's not, there's no division there. You're not pointing the finger at anyone. Again, you are pointing the finger at the soil, right? And you're not blaming the soil. You're just blaming our inability. You're blaming the fact that we forgot to take care of Mother Earth itself, and that's a collective thing. We forgot that collectively, and there's no one to blame. We all have been making the mistake. Again, what else can you do if you're poor? Plant seeds. Go into a park, a national park, or when you're walking along the bike trail, plant seeds along that bike trail. You don't need organic seeds. You can take that apple you bought from the store, or the green pepper or whatever, plant the seeds, and they'll probably grow, right? What happens when you plant that seed? Well, it's a hell of a lot better to plant that seed in the middle of a national park or along a bike trail next to a wooded area, because it's going to not be hammered with pesticides and herbicides. It's not going to be hammered with tilling and over-tilling and monocropping, right? There's all kinds of diverse plants mixed in that forest, right? Ask yourself a question. Why in the hell do we live on this planet and there's not like apple trees growing everywhere or whatever? Why are there no peppers and spinach? Why are we like, why is all the public land just growing giant trees? We've basically failed to understand that this planet can provide for us there's just so much possibility for abundance that this planet offers us, and we're too busy fighting over money, right? That scarcity mindset, that fight or flight mode, has us fighting over money. It's in war, right? It has us in physical wars, has us in financial wars, but we just need to fix the soil. Isn't this narrative a lot better? This soil narrative, isn't it a lot better to point the finger at our agricultural methods as opposed to some race or some other gender, or or some LGBTQ battle, or it just seems like it's a lot more unifying to just point the finger at the fact that we've been treating the earth like shit. The soil, it literally breathes. It breathes in the CO2 that we put into the atmosphere. But if we're killing the life in the soil, the earth can't breathe. It's like we came out of this earth, whether you want to call it a god or whatever. The earth is the mechanism by which God or evolution created us. And we're killing it. And we are dying as a result of that. It just checks out across the board. This theory checks out, okay? Fix the soil and you fix every single problem we have. And beyond that, if we fix this country, if the United States fixes itself, if we do this experiment on a mass scale, we can share our findings with the rest of the world. And then we're not so scared of China. We're not so scared of Russia. We're not so scared of the religion in the Middle East. We can help people. We can help bring the world together and reach and create world peace in a matter of decades. Here's the thing. If we stopped using glyphosate tomorrow, if we stopped over-tilling our fields, if we stopped believing that weeds should be pulled as opposed to left in the ground among our plants, what happens is the earth will heal itself so fast. It won't even take 5 years. The earth is designed to heal itself, and it's in the process of healing itself right now. And part of its current process is throwing us out, killing us with chronic disease. We are dying. And if we don't get our act together, the earth's going to throw us out, and it's going to heal itself regardless. It'll heal itself whether we're here or not. It's us that get to choose whether we want to be here when it heals itself. So, bottom line, get your diet in order. That's the very start of this. And beyond that, stop breathing filtered air all the time. Stop sanitizing everything. Stop hiding in drywall enclosures. Stop breathing air in polluted concrete jungles. Touch dirt. Literally touch grass, as they say. Touch grass. Breathe in the air in the national parks. Diversify all of the things that your senses take in. And nature will take care of you. They will take care of us. But if we keep destroying the soil, the earth is going to throw us out. And in truth, here's the thing. It's like, if you're healthy, well, maybe you survive the plagues that are to come. That's what's going to happen. The earth's going to throw plagues at us to kill us because we're killing it. The rest of the life on the planet is going to basically, they're going to coalesce against us because we're killing it. Now, on the other hand, like I said, we can choose to be against that nature, or we can choose to re-enter it as we did in the past. It's our choice. And like I said, you can individually be a healthy person, but that doesn't mean other humans aren't going to make their problems your problems. That doesn't mean that just because you eat healthy, you're going to survive the plagues, because the plagues they're going to start wars. and that's the problem. It's like, you can't just take care of yourself. You have to spread this message. You have to try to take care of other people too. It's not good enough to just hide on your plantation or whatever and grow your own food and live off grid, because when everyone else goes crazy because they're getting sick and they're getting scared and they start the wars and they start the revolutions, it's going to come bite you in the ass. We have to come together and fix the soil. It is the cause of all of our problems. If we do that, again, we can heal the planet in a matter of a decade at most. And in 10 years, 20 years, the socioeconomic structures will heal themselves. The wealth inequality will ease. The stress will ease. The chronic disease will ease. We have to put ourselves back into nature. Again, if you're broke, just start by eating healthier and walking into a forest. Breathe in the air that you were meant to breathe. Stop breathing filtered air all the time. Diversify the foods you eat, and that will diversify your gut microbiome, just as we need to diversify the microbiome of the soil. As it stands, again, we have to fertilize the soil. We're treating the soil. We're not fixing the soil. And because of that, we're treating symptoms. We need to treat the causes of the actual problems. And the common denominator of all the problems is the soil. Leave behind these economic narratives. Leave behind the race wars, the gender wars, all the culture wars, the political wars. Leave behind the national pride, the national wars, the patriotism. Be a patriot for your planet. And if we can all do that, we'll fix our problems in a decade, and we'll be on our way to utopia. Thanks for watching.